YouTube Oziko in the Goat House is back with some serious NFL trade candidates as that roster deadline approaches here at the end of preseason. There's going to be a ton of cuts, obviously, at that time, but there'll be some trades as well. So talking candidates, talking about their value, their landing spots, and the chances they are dealt. So really excited about this one. These videos in the past have been somewhat accurate. Also had a recent cut candidates video. We'll talk more on the trades. Always talking about this stuff as it happens on our Twitter, so make sure you follow that. It's on your screen. There's a link pinned in the comments for that, other social media accounts, and our sponsors, including Liquid IV, code GOAT, 20% off. New flavors, sugar-free options. Make sure you like, subscribe to the notifications on. I cannot wait for our in-season content here. Let's quickly go over Trey Lance. We've talked about him during the offseason. I'm kind of getting sick of it, but Trey Lance still an option out there because he actually could be QB3 for the 49ers, and it seems like his value is dropping because even though the most recently we saw him, he led a game-winning drive, but been a little sloppy, could be being passed up by Sam Darnold on the depth chart, value dropping, could be a 4th-round pick, could even be a 5th-round pick. Landing spots, a common theme here with these teams I came up with is that they're looking. They don't need a quarterback right now, a starting quarterback, but they're looking for that guy of the future. So they roll the dice a little bit, on Trey Lance because he still has some upside. So that's kind of the common theme of these teams here. Maybe besides Washington, they still want to try out Sam Howell, see if he's the guy of the future. I would like to fit there in that system in case Howell doesn't work out. But I think chances of trade low. People talk about him as a candidate. There is a shot he is traded. That's why he's on this video. It's not 0% chance. Otherwise, he wouldn't be on it. But I think it's on the lower side just because do the 49ers give him up for what teams want to trade, because they might be high on him still because how much they gave up to draft him, where they drafted him. And then maybe teams a little, scared because what they've seen is had the injuries, not a lot of experience. So there's a lot of factors here on why the trade maybe won't happen, but there is some sort of shot. Jonathan Taylor's been a huge name the last month, the whole debacle going on with the Colts. But actually, yesterday, the Colts gave him permission to seek a trade, which it wasn't surprising. I was expecting that. The Colts were kind of playing hardball, like, hey, you don't want to suit up. You're demanding a contract. We're going to sign some guys here, bring some guys in. So I almost expected them to let him go out and seek that trade. Doesn't mean they're going to give him up for nothing, anything like that. But, trade value, and it sounds like they're looking for a first-round pick or equal value. Nobody's going to trade a 1 right now, so we can try to find equal value, which is a possibility of it happening. I think 2 second rounds and a 3rd-round pick. You take a look at what McCaffrey got traded for, a 2, a 3, a 4, a 5. So 2 2s and a 3, young running back, still getting better. I think it makes some sense. Could there be another pick tagged along in there? Could it, instead of 2 2s, could it be a 2 and 2 3s and more picks? All those possibilities. I don't see a team trading a 1 right now. Landing spot, Jonathan Taylor is so tricky here. Landing spots, the Ravens, the Dolphins, the Vikings, the Panthers, which is a wild card one, the Eagles. I tried to narrow it down. I tried to challenge myself a little bit with these, try to go top 5, but I did want to list some other teams. The Bears possibly, but they have a long list of running backs. How much will they value the position? People talk about the Bills, but will they value the position like this? They haven't, so why would they do it now? But possibly. The Broncos were a deeper wild card. They're a little low on picks next year, though, so that's the issue there. But, yeah, I'm probably going to spend a lot of time talking about Taylor here because he's like kind of the biggest thing, the biggest news lately, the biggest trade candidate. But it's tricky for a trade to happen because the Colts are going to ask for a lot. Teams are prepared. They're ready to go into the season. They're pretty much set at running back unless some catastrophic injury happens. So do they want to deal for a running back, number one? How many teams want to? Do they want to pay, even though he's very talented, do they want to pay a high price? And then the bigger thing here is right now he wants a new contract. He's not suiting up for the Colts right now because he wants a new contract. So does he need a new contract from a new team? It sure sounds like it right now. So how many teams are going to trade big-time value? How many teams need a running back right now at this stage going right into the season? How many teams want to trade big-time value for him? And how many teams want to, he's worth the money, but lay out that long-term extension. Work on that long-term extension. Give it to him right now. At this time, it's pretty thin on the amount of teams. So if the Colts accept something what I have here, maybe a little bit less, it makes it a little more likely. If Jonathan Taylor is willing to play on I don't think he's going to play on the Colts on his current contract, but if he plays on a new team, maybe a contending team, with that expiring deal, which is possible, doesn't feel like he wants to right now, But that's kind of the big thing. If, that's the big one right there. If he agrees to play, without ASAP, creating that new deal, agreeing to a new deal, then it's a lot more likely. But I'm listing off things that have to happen. There's like a checklist here and how many teams fill all of those boxes. So that's why the chances of trade are a little low. But there's a lot of talk about it right now. There is interest. So I almost put it on medium. I'm just not expecting one anytime soon. You take a look at the trade deadline. That's more of a possibility. This is kind of going into the year. If the Ravens are a prime time team if Jonathan Taylor agrees to play on his current contract with the new team. The Ravens would do that, and then he would be deadly in that running game, an upgrade for them, and healthier than what they got as well, you would think. And then they would be, if they love him and they give him a new deal, but they're famous for kind of letting the guys walk, and then they get the big-time compensatory pick for him, in the future. So that would make sense. The Dolphins don't have a lot of cap space in the future, so they would kind of be, if he doesn't need a new deal, they would be all over it for a 1 year. They continue on with the 1 year deal for now. So those are teams I've highlighted. But again, if he demands a new long-term expensive deal, though, if we learn that, if wherever he gets traded to, he will demand that. I'm almost taking those two teams out because I don't see those one of my top landing spots right now, but I'm almost taking them out. The Vikings, which they've been digging around for some running backs, even though they got rid of Dalvin Cook, but you get like a fresh Dalvin Cook here, a younger, fresh Dalvin Cook. And the Vikings actually have a lot of future cap space. Yeah, I guess the downside of that is it's not really a downside, but they do have to pay Justin Jefferson a lot of money and TJ Hawkins a lot of money. And then they got to deal with their quarterback situation in the future. So they might be a little tricky. But so that would be why not. I think people would say, well, they got rid of Dalvin Cook, so why would they be in Jonathan Taylor? So that's maybe why people would take them out. I'd say that would be false. That doesn't have anything to do with anything, I think. But it's more so they have a lot of future cap space, but kind of saving it, being careful, and they are a pass-first offense. Panthers, Frank Reich's there, so that's a big one. They have future cap space, so that's huge. They just signed Miles Sanders to a kind of somewhat of a big deal for this past offseason, this free agency that just happened. But, so will they be willing to have Sanders as a backup after they just gave him that big money? Will the Colts accept the deal, Sanders going to them? I don't know, because it's kind of an expensive deal for Miles Sanders. It's not like too, overpaid, anything like that. But the Colts really don't want to pay bigger money to running backs. But Shane Steichen there, Miles Sanders played under Shane Steichen with Philadelphia, so that actually makes some sense is for that reason. But it's kind of weird. They just signed Sanders. Do they ship him to Indianapolis, get Jonathan Taylor? You never know. And the Eagles, they're always sneaky in these situations. They have good running backs, but they all have durability concerns. So I just think a lot has to happen. If we wake up one day and Taylor said, Jonathan Taylor says, hey, the new team that I go to, I won't demand a new contract. Then it becomes a lot more likely. It actually might boost from, I'm at that low medium range right now. It might go to that medium high, just like that, kind of go all the way up there. So, there's a checklist, like I said, with Jonathan Taylor. So it's interesting. I'm expecting it to drag on a little bit, maybe a trade deadline. So we will see. Clyde Edwards-Helaire, another running back. The Chiefs really like Isaiah Pacheco, obviously looked like a stud last year. And they might have found a hidden gem with Prince, Deneric Prince. So, but they still like Edwards-Helaire. He's kind of sneaky in the passing game as well. He's been underwhelming, but he's good when he's in there at the same time. He's not great, but he's pretty good. So they might, hang on to him, especially with his values at. Will a team trade a 4th-round pick? I can't rule it out. 4th round's a possibility. Then the Chiefs maybe would do it. 5th-round pick, the Chiefs might just rather keep him, but we'll see. Expiring deal. The Colts are looking for a running back. If Jonathan Taylor is not going to play for them, they tried to bring in Kareem Hunt. That didn't happen at the time of recording this yet. The signing, I should say, did not happen. The Bengals, with Joe Burrow there, that was a hell of a duo, obviously, in LSU. The quarterback running back duo, Edwards-Helaire caught a lot of balls from Burrow as well, and they could use a running back, to pair with Mixon perhaps. They got some other options, but they'd get better. The Vikings have been doing some homework on running backs. They brought in Kareem Hunt, Mike Davis. They're kind of looking around. They're more of a pass-first offense now, and he's a good pass catcher, Edwards-Helaire, that is. The Ravens always looking for guys like this, an expiring deal, always looking to add running backs. And the Dolphins have kind of been in on some of the running backs that I mentioned. So This is, I say, medium chances of trade. You know, what's stopping it is maybe if teams, you know, offer 5th or less, the Chiefs may go, I think we just rather keep him, because when he's on the field, he's pretty decent. He helps us out, you know. So that would be what is stopping it right now. But we'll see. Receiver Hunter Renfro, we talked about him a lot this offseason. The trade, we kept thinking a trade could happen, never happened. So, but I mean, they have Jacoby Myers who can play in the slot. Renfro's a slot guy. They could keep him. Hearing good things. He looks good. You know, value at around a 5th round pick, in my opinion. 4th is a possibility. You know, Eagles would be a good fit, but they like Zacchaeus in that role. You know, he did get banged up in that last preseason game. I think he'll be all right. Patriots, it seems like a Patriots guy, but they have a list of receivers, but no really great receivers. Juju could play that slot role. Falcons, I think the Falcons are kind of missing this last piece to their receiver group. Would make some sense. Titans, I know Kyle Phillips got banged up. So we talked about Titans being a legit landing spot for Renfro in the past. On the Saints, I thought made some sense too. You know, the only thing is Michael Thomas, you know, right now he's healthy. They like playing him in the slot, plays both slot and outside. But I go chances of trade medium. It's hard to pinpoint a landing spot. Like, yes, I did like the Titans a lot, but like, yes, I can. Because I'm usually good with feeling the trades, like gut feeling. Like I could see this landing spot, this actually happening. There, you know, it's a trade candidate that I can see because he's been mentioned a bit, and they've kind of replaced him with Myers. I suppose they can use both. You know, even though they're both slot guys, and even Adams lines up in the slot sometimes, and Mayer does too, the tight end. So, you know, that's why it's a tricky one though, because I don't know if there's a team that like, yes, that team should definitely be interested in trading. I mean, there's teams that definitely could be. So, a little tricky. And Corey Davis, who is a cut candidate as well, because the Jets could clear a lot of money. That's kind of the tricky part with him. I would say high chances of being traded because teams could use him. He can play outside and the slot. But he's a little expensive. Could the Jets play a portion, you know, to trade him? But wouldn't they just rather cut him than get that $10.5 million? So these are the questions we ask here. 5th round value. I think he's super talented, actually. But around a 5th round value. Falcons. Familiar with Arthur Smith and his offense. Titans kind of going back to Tennessee. They could like that. You know, brought up the Saints. Saints could be sneaky and looking for another receiver. The Broncos could be looking for another receiver. Some injuries, obviously. So I did like the Broncos for Davis. And the Lions. The Lions are another sneaky team that couldn't be in need of a receiver. Jamison Williams suspension, also dealing with an injury. And they have other, I mean, Amon-Ra St. Brown's fantastic, but and they have other options that are decent, but nothing really like set. And you know, and they liked Mims enough to get him, but then they had to get rid of him because of an injury. So I know this is a little, you know, another Jets guy. I know, but I know it's a little different. They were kind of looking for a depth guy with Mims. Corey Davis would have to be a, you know, more than that, more than just a rotational role. But I thought that did make sense. That made sense as well. So medium trade chances. It might be more likely he gets cut though, just because the amount another team has to pay and the amount the Jets could clear if they just cut him. Would they rather do that, or would they rather gain a pick back? Tyler Higbee, talk about him as could be a surprise cut candidate in the last video, but I think he's got some trade value. He's a really good tight end with experience, can catch the ball. You know, maybe underrated as a blocker, 4th round pick value, maybe 5th. There's some teams I really like for him. I love the Bengals as a fit. I mean, you know, the kind of the last piece they're missing. They have some other options at tight end, but I love the fit in Zach Taylor's offense. And this would, you know, they're a serious contender, and this would make them more of a serious contender, in my opinion. Like, you know, for those serious contenders, it doesn't take getting a star to make them more of a serious contender. It just takes something like this. Washington could definitely use another tight end. It would make sense in Bieniemy's offense if they, you know, potentially move on from a guy like Logan Thomas because they can free a little bit of money, trade for Higbee. I think that made a lot of sense. The Browns could be, Browns been clearing a lot of space, loan, you know, cap into their future. That's the negative, but freeing space now, you do that to spend the money. You do that to go get better. So I could see them pairing him with Njoku and when they run some 12 personnel. The Dolphins haven't really valued the tight end a whole lot, but you know, that's why they moved on from Gesicki, but Higbee could be a better option for them that can do a little bit more. It's more of a wild card. Cowboys, same thing. They lost Dalton Schultz, but they kind of like the sleeper options that they have. Bengals, Commanders, love the landing spots. The Browns not too far under those, but some serious landing spots for Higbee. I know the Rams like him, but are they going in some sort of rebuild? But will they be willing to trade him? I can definitely see it. So I go medium chances of trade on that one. La'el Collins, coming off the injury, always dealing with the injuries. That's the tricky part, but I feel like the Bengals we know they're going to go Orlando Brown Jr. left tackle. I think they're going to go Jonah Williams at right tackle. So Collins, teams desperate for tackles, looking for quality tackles. He's a very good one. So 4th round pick value. Last year it felt like, he had some value, but he ended up getting, cut. So that's, so does he even have 4th round pick value? But the Jets, that's all they need is offensive line. And, I know, I guess add another guy with durability because the offensive line doesn't sound appealing, but, anything helps at this point. So could be an option for them at right tackle. Titans, Nicholas Petit-Frere was the right tackle, suspended for 6 games. And they had to cut Jamarco Jones because of fights or whatever is going on with him there. So they could be in need of another tackle. Patriots, same thing. Definitely could use some upgrades at tackle. Jags, more of a wild. Jags and Bills, more of a wild card. I really highlight those first 3 teams for La'el Collins. Chances being traded medium because he might not be starting for the Cincinnati Bengals. How healthy is he? That's the situation. The Bengals moved like $7 million by moving on from him, so we'll see what happens there. Emmanuel Ogbah, not really talked about at all. It's what I'm bringing up because he could be a second-string, key rotational guy in the Dolphins, and he just might be too talented for that. He might be too talented for that, but we'll see. Maybe he starts. Maybe he gets on the field more than we think. I mean, he should. He's very talented, but so I got like a 4th round pick. The problem is he's very expensive. It's gonna be like just over $15 million for a team to trade for him. The Dolphins always could pay a little bit of a portion to help facilitate that trade. So that is the problem with an Ogbah trade happening. That's why it's low. Otherwise, I would put it medium or high because it makes sense. Teams would love to have him. Good player. Teams definitely could use him in need of a player like this. The compensation would make sense. He's just very expensive right now. So that is kind of the issue. Brian Flores with the Vikings. That's where Ogbah kind of made his money there. So thought that made some sense, but they might be set with what they have. Saints could use a defensive end. I like that fit a lot there too. Chicago, do they stop with just Ngakoue? I mean, they add another one here. They have a lot of cap space as well. I could see them kind of developing some of the young guys. Ngakoue kind of being it with the veteran add in there. Chargers could play him in like a 3-4 end spot, which they could use. In the Texans, I can see him fitting that D'Amico Ryans defense very well. They would probably have to move on from. We're going to talk about a guy on the defensive line for the Texans, but they would probably have to move on from a guy. So a lot of those make sense. Like teams that definitely could use him. Really good fits, and the Bears have plenty of cap space to afford. Teams like that. It's just pretty damn expensive, and he is good. So the Dolphins just want to keep him and just use him in unique ways there. So we will see. Jerry Hughes, the Texans guy, they could move on from that. I would expect them to start obviously Will Anderson, but could start Jonathan Grenard as well. They're listed as a starter so far. Hughes was pretty good for them last year. There was talk about him at the trade deadline last year with the Texans. They valued him. They wanted to keep him, and they weren't trying to win anything last year. So does that mean that front office still wants him? We will see. But there will be some, I would imagine there'll be some offers. There'll be some calls. 5th round pick, maybe 6th round pick. If it's 6, the Texans probably keep him. So it'd probably have to be a 5th. He is up there in age, but he's still pretty productive. Saints can use another DN. I think it's a good fit. And the Chiefs, the Chiefs made sense at the deadline last year, but the Texans, I know, declined some offers. I'm assuming the Chiefs were involved in those and other teams. Falcons, Niners, Broncos. Those are teams that make some sense to me. I say chances trade high, actually. I'm not going to guarantee it, but I think it's on the higher side. I think he's going to be a backup. He can still play well for them, but maybe he goes somewhere to a contending team because he's a veteran that's been around a bit, knows his football, and help that contending team. So a trade, could make some sense. Chiefs right now, they're kind of in need of a pass rusher pretty bad. So I thought that made a lot of sense there. Next, Isaiah Simmons, which been underwhelming in his career. I thought he was almost out of position or out of scheme. I thought he was a 4-3 outside linebacker coming in that also can play in a slot, maybe safety here and there. And the Cardinals had him at inside linebacker. Now new staff has him in. They're trying him out at DB in the slot a little bit. And it hasn't gone too great based on what I'm hearing so far. So value, could it be 4th because the upside still, I don't know if anybody would do that, so I'd say a 5th. And I think he would go play a linebacker somewhere, and a team can move him around, maybe in the slot, cover tight ends perhaps. But Vance Joseph in Denver, so I had to mention them. They might think they're set at linebacker, though. Ravens, I thought was an interesting, thing. They like to take the guys in the expiring deals and, see how they play, then potentially get that future compensatory pick for them. So they, I could see that. Raiders definitely need some help at the linebacker position, and they could use them in the slot as well. Giants looking for linebackers, and they're specifically looking for linebackers that can cover a little bit better. So I thought that made some sense. In the Bills, maybe, not that he's at all Tremaine Edmonds, but they lost him, and maybe they can view him as a replacement, a guy that's pretty good in coverage, linebacker position, kind of freaky. Chance of trade low just because teams might lowball the Cardinals. He's a bit of a mystery on where he'll play. Most teams, literally like 90% of teams might be like, we don't know what to do with him. So that's why it is a little tricky, but it's one to watch out for because I do think he needs a fresh start somewhere. And then Kenny Moore, which I thought was a little more likely of a trade, earlier, before the draft. It never really happened. I thought it made a lot of sense then. I even heard him talk live at the Combine, and he was like, doesn't know if the new defense has been for him, so that almost made it sound like okay, he wants out or they're going to trade him. I don't know, but hasn't been the case. They really need him right now if they're looking to compete, but I don't know if the Colts are like looking to win the Super Bowl right now so they can just get more picks, especially if they're trying to trade Jonathan Taylor. So this is one I feel like I should be putting chances of trade high, but they didn't do it yet. You think if they would have done it, they would have done it by now. Not really hearing much about it. And the Colts should look at this. I thought he fit Eberflus's defense much better than Gus Bradley's. I think he even says that he basically said that on the air when I heard him, and that's kind of where I brought him up as a candidate earlier in the offseason. But super talented. I think more talented than fourth-round value, but that's kind of where it's at. He's a little expensive if traded for as well. But talked about he was amazing in Eberflus's defense, cover 2 defense. Eberflus with the Chicago Bears right now. So that would make some sense. They might be set with their younger corners, though. Ravens, always looking for more corners. Marlon Humphrey injured. He played outside, inside. Kenny Moore plays, inside, outside. They're trying to run more zone, add more cover too. Makes sense. I like that as a fit. I feel like Ravens I like a lot for a lot of these guys. And they do make these sneaky trades, Falcons, Kuda got injured. They're looking for, I feel like they're always looking for the guys that can play inside, outside, or recently they have. The Vikings definitely could use a corner. They badly could use a corner. So that's why you almost have to put them. But Flores is trying to run a ton of man coverage. I think Kenny Moore is better in zone, more looking cover 2. So I like these other teams better. And the Raiders could, very much use another corner. I think they would play him in the slot, so they make some sense. But Bears, because of obvious fit. Ravens make a lot of sense. I like those first two. The Ravens actually make a lot of sense for the Jonathan Taylor, 2 Colts guys. I like Isaiah Simmons, kind of sneaky for him. Yeah. Another corner, Jordan Lewis, who, inside, outside versatility, but he's definitely much better in the inside from, experience in man coverage specifically. Cowboys will either cut or trade him, in my opinion, so chances of trade or cut would probably be high. Lower value. I think he's a little more talented than that, but coming off the injury and he's a little bit further down the depth chart right now. So 6th-round pick. I think somebody can get a bargain with that. We talked about it. Minnesota needs corners, and they specifically can use a slot corner unless they're playing Byron Murphy full-time in there. I don't know if they want to do that. And Lewis is a man coverage guy. So I thought that made a lot of sense. Again, the Ravens could use another corner. So they could be interested in Jordan Lewis as well. Falcons. We see some similar teams. Falcons, Raiders. The Jags could be interested to put them in the slot. But, talk about the Ravens and maybe the Bears for Kenny Moore. I look at the Vikings and the Ravens, for Jordan Lewis here. So I think we mentioned the Vikings a little bit too because they're looking for corners. And it looks like they're looking for running backs, but we mentioned the Ravens a bit as well for these trade candidates. So I'm really excited about this. There could be more too if teams could look to trade the cut candidates video. Like the teams could look to trade the guys I had in that video, in those videos as well. There's gonna be some smaller name guys. Kind of want to focus on the bigger name guys here. So I'm gonna kind of take some of these guys, maybe some new ones I think of, and make a trade scenarios video with actual realistic trades. Compensation involved there. So. I'm excited about all this. I'm excited the season's about to start. It's really fun that we get the roster moves, the cuts and the trades right before the season starts. Really fun time of the year. And we got you guys covered live on Twitter when anything happens, and then we got the recaps, like the videos in depth here on YouTube. So we got you guys covered. So make sure you follow us on Twitter. Make sure you like, subscribe, to notifications on right on here. Any important link you're looking for, pin in the comments section. Cannot wait for our season content. Cannot wait for all the content. Hopefully you guys are on the same page there. It's going to do it. Thanks for watching. Goodbye.